Hello, and welcome to HRBC's new show called Let's Talk. I'm Nina Francis, your host. As you know, on January 11th, the 89th District will be voting for a new representative. Yesterday, we spoke with one of the candidates, Giovanni Dalmo, and today we're pleased to have Jackie Glass. So, welcome. Would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Nina, for having me and for the Hampton Roads Black Caucus for just doing this, right? We know this is on the fly, right? A lot of people don't know that this is even going on, but I'm Jackie Glass. I'm a mama, Navy vet, certified doer, and candidate for the House of Delegates 89th District. I tell people I'm a come here, not a from here, because I'm originally from the Chicagoland area. But this is our chosen hometown. I did 11 years in the Navy. My husband retired here, and he said, this is the place that you need to be for the things that you want to do. And I don't know if you know much about the military, but most folks fight not to come to the Hampton Roads area. But he was right. I have two little citizens that are that go to Norfolk Public Schools. I'm a small business owner. I do consulting on instructional design, as well as helping organizations look at their policies and practices and programs to pull out the isms, racism, sexism, classism, ageism, all those different things to have a better workforce. And I've been, doing a lot of work in the community. I'm the president of my civic league, which is where I just panted in here from, just doing community work. Yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell, doing community work, and now back on the grind of trying to be of more service, enter into my second service with our community.
All right. So I have a few questions. First one. If elected, how will you support economic improvement in African American community?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we look at economic improvement just in our community, we have to think about not just it's not even the types of jobs, it's how we look at the labor force. One of the best things that I think we can do, and I think our state legislators kind of on the road to doing that, is increase minimum wage. Like we talk about people having dignity, or at least our folks having dignity in the work, or our dignity being honored. And that truly does start with being able to say that we're making enough money to be able to have a family. We're making enough money to be able to sustain what it is that we're trying to do. There needs to be an encouragement in sort of workforce development. Now, that's what my background is in. I have a degree in workforce education and development. So it's about knowing that there are gaps between what we've been able to do, what we've had access to do, and how do we ensure that the jobs of the future don't count us out for experiences that we necessarily were not afforded the opportunity to be a part of.
Okay.
Sorry.
So in Norfolk, with the closing of,
I was about to say the screen had just went blank. I didn't know if you could see me. My apologies.
Oh yeah, we can still see you.
Okay.
So okay, let's see. In Norfolk, with the closing of Tidewater Gardens, Calvert Square, and Young's Terrace, what will you do to ensure that what is built to replace those areas still have enough affordable housing to accommodate the families that were displaced? Because, what good is having a voucher if you can't use it?
Right. So I think it's important to put some context on that question, and then related to what I can do at the state level, right? Like, we know that right now folks are getting vouchers and they cannot use them here. People are not excited. It's actually illegal to discriminate against someone for having a voucher, for using a voucher. Seeing that folks are having to go out of state. I know people that have had to go to Atlanta or have moved to Nevada and moved completely other places because they couldn't find anywhere to use their voucher. This question, at least for a state level representative, boils down to what is being built, right? About our city being able to have the teeth to be able to say when we do build affordable housing, put that in quotes because we also need to have the same working definition of what affordable is. Because based off of our median income here in Norfolk, that affordable housing, your rent would be a little under $700 a month, and you can find that nowhere. So in our city, we can have this thing called inclusionary zoning where we can mandate that a builder or that a developer builds so much affordable housing every time that they build, right? So we can say 10% of those properties, 20% of those properties have to be affordable housing at this price point. What happens is that the city, because the state doesn't allow for it, has no teeth, right? There's no consequence for a developer that chooses not to, right? At the state level, we need to allow localities to have a little bit more consequences for those developers so that when they don't build the affordable housing that we say that we need, that we're able to hold them accountable. You have places like, I think, Kansas City, where if a developer does not build the amount of affordable housing that they said they were going to build or within that range, for every unit that they build that is not, that is substandard, they have to pay into a housing trust, which allows the city to then go back into building affordable housing. So I think on the state level, what we can advocate is for more powerful localities to enforce the building of affordable housing in our area. And I don't know that we're ready to talk about rent control and things like that, but that's also a part of it, because not only is it happening in Calvert Square and Young's Terrace and in Tidewater Gardens, but the average person is not able to find a home to rent here because the prices are ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. So do you support community policing?
Do I support community policing? Yes. I support. So the thing about, what I was going to say, sort of thing about community policing is that oftentimes I think, oh, you said, yes, I support community policing. I want to explain if you wanted a yes or no answer. My fault.
Oh, yeah. You can explain. Because my next is, do you have a vision of what that will look like?
Yeah. So I think oftentimes people say community policing, and the vast majority of people don't necessarily understand what community policing is. Community policing is essentially focused deterrence policing, which means what I mean by focused deterrence policing means that we're going to hone in on specific problems in a community. Like if that particular community has a drug dealing problem or a violent behavior problem or a gang problem or a gun violence problem, then the community then focus on the individual sort of subset of group that drive most of that activity, which is particularly, people with a criminal record involved in whatever that activity is. Community policing, and this is, again, how we do it, is a strategy that is going to bring together the law enforcement and the community groups to sort of clearly signal what is illegal and what are the community consequences for violence. Because it is going to take some cultural norms within communities to be able to sort of say, this is exactly what we do or do not want, right? Especially in relationship to those specific behaviors, and to not only say, here's the consequence for it, but here are the alternatives to that violent crime or their criminal lifestyles. And the community also should be able to offer some sort of social service or other forms of help. Now, I do not believe that any locality or any state should be a total local government. I think we need to be a total social service. We have to work on social enterprising. So this sort of idea that I'm talking about with deterrence policing is so that if somebody has a long history of like drug or violent crimes, the police can let that person know, right? We have a committed program that lets that person know this is the consequence, right? If this continues to happen, you got decades or life in prison, whatever that looks like. And the community can also voice through those personal interactions, right? Building the connections, how that damages them, that community, their families, their friends, their church, their schools, and so on. And the groups can also, like I said, offer help like accessibility to jobs and education programs. There's a slew of information or studies that we can look at what that looks like when someone is causing those sorts of things within a community, because 9 times out of 10, there are hotspots. We know where the things are happening. They're concentrated, but it's about having the tool parts and materials to deter folks from doing that and creating the culture, right? Like helping communities create culture that deter that sort of activity.
Okay.
Sorry.
How will you support job creation in the African American community?
I think it's a great question, because a lot of times, for several months, I've been looking at these sort of things from the local perspective, right? And how does that translate to the state? So to me, it's not just about sustaining or supporting job creation. It's about paying families sustainable wages, right? It's about how do we have, because there are jobs, like we all know right now that there are jobs out there, especially with some of the industries that are coming here. So is there a family sustaining wage on whole? Is there accessibility? Meaning, do these jobs require 4-year degrees for the candidate to perform them successfully? It's been said, or there was a study done, that there's over like 4 million jobs today that can be re-credentialed to remove the requirement for a 4-year degree, because the university YouTube and the way that we are learning things so fast now, that there is supplemental and there's opportunities to get the necessary essentials to be qualified for a job. I think part of job creation or job availability more so here is about opportunities to advancement. Do we have jobs that are eligible for promotion for people like us, right? That have parallel education and pathways for more senior positions within that said subset, and is even attracted to us. It's about working with the business community to ensure that when we are when we are creating or when we are opening up jobs, which we've seen for folks like us, for Black folks, is there a high risk of that job being automated? My mother worked for Ford for umpteen years and had jobs shift 1, 2, 3, 4 times because it became automated. A machine took over. So that doesn't allow for a longer sustaining career. And so those industries that we're seeing now, where it's not a matter of job creation, it's about being job ready. We have solar and wind, right? We know that this solar power off of shore wind power, that those machines have over 600 parts. We have arts, music and entertainment. Those sorts of things are coming to our area. We have to have work-based learning opportunities with these jobs that are coming in, and also do skills first hiring and promotion, where we emphasize on competencies rather than education or things like that in the hiring process.
Okay.
For Black folks.
What would you recommend to improve the education system in Virginia?
We could start by ensuring that our teachers' salaries are at the national average or above, and that there's a livable wage for the folks that are educating our children. And that's something that we can do at the state level. I would also say that I would increase or to improve the system is about making sure that we're sending our little citizens in places where they feel like they're ready to learn. So from my purview, it's about increasing the state level sort of support for general public construction, infrastructure, and also the modernization of our schools. In the 89th, we saw during COVID that we weren't even ready. We didn't have the infrastructure in place to even be virtual, whereas we saw localities right next to us that were. So improving the education system, I think, requires more school systems and more state funding in our equity fund, because we do have an equity fund for schooling, but also taking that and investing in places like the 89th where it's truly needed.
Okay. Do you support parents' involvement in their children's education?
Yes.
How much involvement?
Listen, so I will tell you, as a mother of a young boy whose muchiness was a bit much, I think I can see where folks may get a little, antsy about parent involvement. I spent a lot of time at my son's schools. At one point, he was in private school, then he was in public school, and it doesn't matter where he went. My presence was necessary. I look at, as a parent, that a parent's job is also to co-parent with their child's educator. My children's educator are spending sometimes more time with them than I am. I get 3 or 4 hours at the end of the day, and they have six or seven. There's also the piece of this question that I know has everything to do with curriculum, and I do support that. I spent part of COVID actually doing short videos for on my Facebook page just on how we can get local curriculum changes, right? How you can sort of look at the board documents that our school system has, and sort of come up with ways that you can be more involved as a parent. So this is just what we do. My group, it's called Mamas on the Block, or the Mob. We started that group just to help, just to be a support system to other mothers at their IEP meetings, right? So that there was more than one person that teacher could liaison with. So I see it as an opportunity, parents' involvement as an opportunity to co-parent, realizing we don't have full control, right? Like it's our child, but they're out of our house, right? And that understanding what that school system is requiring, their house and their rules, and understanding how we can, like I said, co-parent together. So yeah. I would be very upset if somebody told me that I couldn't be involved in my child's education, because I am their first teacher. I am my child's first educator.
Okay. If elected, what will you recommend to reduce the violence in the African American community?
What would I recommend to reduce the violence in the African American community? Well, study after study has shown us that a livable wage, right? Health services and treatments, educational opportunities, stable housing, all of these things are extremely successful in reducing crime, more so than police or prison. So for me, it is about advocating in a very meaningful and intentional way for housing, for education. And on the other end of that, when we talk about crime, I think that it's important that we couple recidivism in there. There's also a level of helping ex-offenders find, before they get back into the community, secure and livable wages and employment, and also connecting them to stable housing. Those are two factors that contribute. And I've seen it in people that I support on a daily basis, that those are two things that, had they been set up, they probably wouldn't have did another 10 years, right? So that's what I would do, is this investment in housing and education and health.
Do you support lowering taxes?
Yes. Yes.
Now, how would you go about doing that?
All right. It's a loaded question. So here's what we know already. Like, if we're paying attention to what's happening in the Commonwealth, Governor Northam already proposed eliminating the state tax on grocery. That's already been proposed, and we see that the governor-elect is on board with that. Our state grocery tax is 1.5%. But most states don't even tax groceries, right? And so this is one thing that I support, because it doesn't affect local revenue, because still localities got to be able to make it and balance their budgets to do what they need to do. So that's one thing. I think that we should also be providing an income tax for working families. This is something that's already been proposed. Up to like 15% of the federal, the earned income tax credit, making it refundable for families. So it'll give working families sort of a break, and that would be based off of their income. So it would be an opportunity, like I said, for, depending on your income, marital status and things like that, to be able to make providing the income tax cut, because that happens to me every year that I'm paying a little bit extra. I also think what would help with cutting taxes is what's called an accelerated sales tax for retailers. So for retail companies, what happens is when you go to a store, when you or I go to a store, whether it's in person or online, that retailer has to collect taxes for the state, and then it's supposed to forward that money on. But when we had that collapse, if you remember back in 2018, the economy sort of collapsed. And what the state did, our state did, was start requiring these retailers to prepay those taxes before they had been collected. And so even small business now, we're dipping into their own pockets to make it work. So I think ending that accelerated sales tax would be not only good for small businesses, but good for folks like us too. And the last thing I would do is I would stop taxing military retirement. I don't know if you realize this, but Virginia is one of 9 states that fully tax military retirement. And I feel like that retirement is earned by decades of successful service to our country. And quite often, right, that pension isn't even large enough for any veteran to completely retire. So I think we need to get on board with the other the other 41 states and stop taxing military retirement.
Okay. Do you support improving our voting system?
Yes, I think this is a great question. Can I say that? I truly do, Nina, because I just got right after election or right before the November election was asked to be on what is called Fair Vote Virginia. And Fair Vote Virginia, this is my suggestion, is Fair Vote Virginia believes in ranked choice voting. I don't know if you ever heard of ranked choice voting. Have you heard of ranked choice voting before?
No.
Okay. All right. So it's really amazing, right? What it does is ranked choice voting allows you to pick, let's say, for instance, your top, when there's a race where there is more than 2 people in that race, you get to rank your votes. So no one will ever win an election without at least 50% of the votes. So if your top person that you selected is not one of the top 2 vote getters, it goes to your second choice of vote. And then your vote goes to that second choice. Many states are already doing it. In 2020, the General Assembly approved for localities to be able to do ranked choice voting. Actually, the Republican Party selected this pass in their primary. They used ranked choice voting to select their candidates. It's just a way to make sure that every vote counts. Unless all 3 of your choices end up not in the top 2 at some point, your vote really counts. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. And so I do have, and I'm saying this because I think we still have a movement in our area to bring in ranked choice voting. On my website, Jackie4Norfolk.com, there's an area there that says ranked choice voting, like what matters. And there's a really amazing video that talks about how ranked choice voting works. And I think that because we have permission from the state to do it, we should do it. It's an investment that I think is worth it. So no more sort of nastiness in politics because you got to cater to everybody. What if I'm asking to be your second vote, right? I may not be your first choice, but can I be your second choice? Then it just has been proven for women and people of color, like ranked choice voting has been proven to increase the number of women and people of color in the political and elected leadership, which is a beautiful thing.
Okay. So here's the thing. When people hear the word Democrat, they automatically get nervous. And they start worrying about, oh no, my gun rights, they're going to take my gun away from me. Yeah. Is that on your agenda?
I'm into, so first, let me preface this by saying is that I am a gun owner, right? I have my favorite gun, my Taurus Judge, okay? And there's something very therapeutic about going to the range for me, right? Like when I get to go, I thoroughly enjoy it. So I'm not trying to take anybody's guns who's a smart gun owner, therapeutic about. So no worries. What I do believe in, right, is I do believe in going to the range for me, right? Like when I get to go, I thoroughly enjoy it. So I'm not trying to take anybody's.
My phone is like not working with me.
You got, listen, host, I know that you're managing a myriad of things, right? You're not just asking, you ain't just sitting there asking questions. I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So I do believe in common sense gun laws, right? Like I'm not gonna, there's no one, and I think that there's that perception is very interesting because I don't know what the perception is when they say Republican. Now I'll be really clear, and I've said this to everybody. I have not been in party politics for the duration of my community service, but I have been into people, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I look at people, I say, do I want a gun in the hands of somebody who is mentally unstable? No, we don't want that happening, right? Do we want a gun into someone who has threatened to take someone's life, right? Or their spouse, like their it just makes sense. Certain things just make sense. So have your gun, be a smart, responsible gun owner, right? And we don't have no problems. I think that's for most people. I think we see eye to eye on that. I think But I think that whole issue has been politicized in a way that it's like, are you mentally unstable? Do you have a history of domestic abuse and all these other things, right? Like, no, then I don't want your gun. Like, go have a good time, go hunt, do what you're going to do. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I want my bipolar cousin who has threatened everybody's life to be having a gun in his hand because there's potential for that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, yeah. Stereotypes, right? We can't put each other in the box.
All right. So my last question. If I was a diehard Republican, why should I vote for you?
Well, like I said, I haven't been in the party side of doing business, but I've been in the politics, in the people side. And I think it's about value aligned, right? Find where your values are aligned. I do believe in the ABCs of governance. That's accountability, boldness, and coalition building. I want safe communities, and I recognize that working from safe is that is a different working definition for many different people. So I don't necessarily come to a position from seeing the D or the R, recognizing that this arena, that's all it is, right? On the state level, that is all it is. But I would ask a person who identifies as a Republican I check my record. I say, like, listen, for what I do has always been about the benefit of communities, the benefit of people, and adding value as a person to whatever space and place I'm in. And that's universal.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Do you have any final words you want to give us?
I'm going to say, look, if you don't live in the 89th, but you know people that live in the 89th, get them out to vote, right? Early voting has already started. So you can go down to 810 Union Avenue and vote on the 8th floor in the Department of Elections. But it's an opportunity. We want as many people to show up, not just because it's a win, but because we live in a constitutional democratic republic, which means we are not in a democracy. We select the people that are supposed to have the same values or like-minded to be able to make decisions for us. This is an opportunity, and I'm just hoping no matter what, that maximum folks show up. Secondly, I can say that in this race, I am so proud that no matter the outcome, we're going to have some military leadership, right? I think that is a beautiful thing. I think as a transplant here, it's a long road to gain the trust, rightfully so. The sentiment about people that come and go is real and it's valid. So oftentimes people with military service like myself don't necessarily get an opportunity like that. And so to see that there are two candidates in this race that have that sort of lived experience, and I know how much it can add value to this process, I'm really excited about that. So you've got a really good reason to get out and vote. So that's all I got.
Okay, well, we would like to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's all I have.
All right, you make it a great evening, Nina.
You too. Bye.
Bye.